Hi, my name is Christina Chala, and I am Bruin Pride. I was doing my women's studies classes. I got involved with the Clothesline project. I actually was on the club water polo team for a year, which was awesome. Took some LGBT studies courses, and I felt like I was more like my direction was gender studies, and a lot of my classmates and I would say we're studying gender, and our classes were called things like sociology of gender, psychology of gender, anthropology of gender. And I know that the department has changed its name since I was a student. It is now gender studies. But sort of the combination of LGBT studies and women's studies courses, I felt gave me this broad understanding of gender in society and globally and cross-culturally, right? And I was trying to apply myself with the Clothesline project. I will say, so I identified as an activist. And I found or learned through the people who mentored me in Clothesline. I was a volunteer, then I chaired a committee, and then I became the chair, one of the co-chairs of the project by the time I was a senior. So I progressed in my involvement with the project. We also sponsored Take Back the Night, our rally and Speak Out for Survivors. So I collaborated with other social justice-oriented clubs who wanted to co-sponsor the Clothesline, or maybe we wanted to support some of their activities. So that's kind of how I met student leaders in the queer orgs, and through my classes. Like, they'd be taking an LGBT studies class, and like my friends Lisa and Mandy were in one of my classes. You know, I met some of the leaders at that time through my classes and through the Clothesline project, but I wasn't a member of any of the queer orgs. And I think I walked by the old LGBT Resource Center when it was in the closet, as Ronnie Sandlow used to call it. I walked by and I think I put my arm in to give them Clothesline flyers. And it was this, I don't know why, looking back, and it was so real. And I know I talked to students about it, and they have this experience too. Like, walking into that space means something, or I don't know what it means. I'm still thinking about my own sexual orientation, maybe. I lived in the res hall for a year, and I think that might be where I saw Ronnie do a present. I don't know. I saw maybe it was with Clothesline. I think she did a workshop, like a session for us in a training, which is another part. Clothesline's awesome. It would train its members on how to be LGBT advocates, for example, and feminists and feminist activists, anyway, and advocates for survivors. She did a 101 on language, like what does LGBT mean, and she threw in a word, heteroflexible, and I was like, that's me. That's totally me. Never heard that word, and I loved that. I don't know, I think I was 19 and met Ronnie Sandlow, and she's another person who changed my life, and was like, oh, okay. In high school I took a AP Psych course, and our teacher was rumored to be gay. No one was out in my high school. No one was out. It was like a 2,000 person high school. I knew no one who identified as LGB, and definitely not T. I'm so glad I played water polo, the first girls team in my high school, even though our boys team was decades old. I've learned since that's part of Title IX, and girls sports growing as colleges needed to recruit women athletes. We would joke all the time about being some way like lesbians, or I think we would say dyke. The language we used was lesbian dyke. Queer didn't exist in our lexicon. Because it's a very aggressive sport. Like, it is an aggressive sport. And we joke about our team photos we have to, like people would straighten their hair and put on makeup, and we'd be in bathing suits, like not even warm-ups, for our girls' team photo. And then we'd go, we'd learn how to, literally sit in the water to look big and aggressive. So we had to think about, what does that mean? We're girls, and we're going to be women. What does this mean about our gender identity? It's kind of a fun space. And I've never really, I've most of my life not felt comfortable in homosocial spaces, like all woman, all girl spaces. Never felt comfortable. And we had a teammate who would joke that she was a lesbian, that she was in love with a classmate 2 years older. And she clung to that person, and they were really good friends, and the older student sort of humored her, and they were buddies. But she would joke that I'm in love with her. I'm totally gay for her, or whatever word she used. And she totally came out after that, after high school. And actually, he now identifies as a man. So I actually do have a classmate, and I'm so proud of him that he felt comfortable transitioning recently within the last year. And that was like 15 years ago that we knew each other. So that space was helpful for me as a gender non-conforming sort of person. I would wear men's clothing, sort of preppy. My friends, we all in high school identified as nerds, so there was definitely a level of like, I'm dressing in like preppy boy clothes, and I kind of identify as a nerd, and here I am playing this really aggressive sport. It was fun for me. It felt liberating. And so then just learning, back to, I had this AP Psych teacher who just said, okay, there are gay people and lesbians and it's normal. Moving on. And transgender people. And I remember being in high school going, do I like having a vagina? Like that was my because I was gender bending then, and I still do. I identify as a cross-dresser, but I've never identified as trans in any way. I definitely identify as a cis woman with cis privilege. But it was important for me, like I'm so glad I had that teacher who made it this normal like moment, and for whatever reason I took it as like, oh, that might be me, let me think, is that me? And I had the same thoughts about, am I gay, am I queer, am I attracted to women, and I never had been. And even Ronnie Sandlow, some people are heteroflexible, I was like, yes, if I ever meet a woman and I'm attracted to her, I'm all over it. But I hadn't been, never had been. And I went to college, transferred from Saddleback, so I went to UCLA wanting to shave my head. It was a goal of mine because it's such a strong gender cue. And I was uncomfortable with, I just wanted to deconstruct what is gender, boom. And transferring to UCLA, I chopped my hair to like shoulder length. That was my first attempt to like, let's see what that does for my family is very conservative politically and socially, I would say. What will that do? And they were like, okay, whatever. So I was like, okay, and I kept cutting it shorter over like a year. and then it was pretty short for another year. My third year of college, I did end up shaving my head, I think that's when it was. And it was the summer I was in LA, and I think my family only saw me once with a shaved head. And these are all these stories, I can keep going and going. So I identified as heteroflexible, didn't really go to the LGBT Center, but collaborated, co-sponsored, because they supported the Clothesline. They sponsored the Clothesline project with the Center for Women and Men. So we worked really I worked really closely with Tina Oakland in the Center for Women and Men, and co-sponsored, and like got to know Ronnie a little bit. And Ronnie spoke at a few Take Back the Nights and other smaller speak outs and rallies we had. Bruin Pride is access, and when I say access, I mean to higher education, to educational empowerment. Knowledge is power is one of my sayings. Knowledge is power. UCLA is an example of, if you can get there, it should be more accessible in my opinion. Anyway, Bruin Pride is access to higher ed, to knowledge, to empowerment, to voice. An education that has helped me become who I am, and have a voice for wherever I go in my life. That's irreplaceable. I am so proud to have had that opportunity, and I want more people to have that opportunity.